Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And today's topic of discussion is mental wellness. And the conversation on mental wellness, I'm going to be talking about different attitudes that will help you bounce back from difficult situations. And I think that it's really important that we all remember that all of us are going to experience difficulties in our lives. All of us are going to go through hardships. And in those hardships, we learn those hard lessons. Now, I think that it is for everyone in everyone's best interest to want to extract from those lessons the opportunity to grow, to be wiser, to show up better, to show up differently. And I think that adopting some of these mindsets will help you get there. And so I think that there's a lot of really great things that we can really pull from really hard times. And these are moments of clarity. These are moments of truth. These are moments that really show us who we are to the people around us, which can sometimes be a disappointment in and of itself, but we would much prefer disappointment in the reality of things than feeling comfort in an illusion. At least for me, that would be my preference. And so a lot of what has made me the human that I am today, even a lot of what has built into why Project Purpose exists, is because of my beliefs around difficulty, around hardship, around how we bounce back through them, regardless of the stage and phase in life. And so difficulty isn't this thing that is age conscious. It's like this thing, like we can go through difficulties at a very young age. We could have a uneventful childhood and go through difficulties at an older age. I think that the hardships we face are really very personal to us. I don't think anyone is spared. So I think sometimes people think that difficulty is something that can be gauged based on socioeconomic status or something that is gender specific. I think there's a lot of different biases that we have around difficulty and around why certain people experience more difficulties than others. I think that there is a difference by way of how privilege can play into difficulty, for sure, for some things, but not for everything. I think there are things that we're going to face regardless of socioeconomic status, regardless of gender, even sometimes regardless of nationality. There are just some things that are just part of the human experience. And so with all of that said, I think the first mindset that is really, really important when it comes to handling difficulty is our attitudes around who we are in relation to the events that are taking place. And so this was one of the very first decision points that I had to make. I had experienced some difficulty growing up, and I had to really think about, well, am I a victim just because I'm being victimized, or am I surviving this? Like, is this something that I know I'm going to push through? And that actually is a really important question to ask yourself, because it's going to change the trajectory of how you respond to that specific setting, right? And being a survivor can be a survivor of so many different things, especially when we think about social dynamics. There's so many different things that we have all survived in our social dynamics. But if you see yourself as a victim, then it's much harder to bounce back from that, because you've abandoned your locus of control. So as a victim, you have no control. You don't recognize your control in how you respond. You don't recognize your control in how you don't respond. Like, there's a lot of things that you're not applying when you take on a victim mindset. And so the very first and very important, I think, decision point mindset to take on is one of a survivor. And looking at every situation that you are in, knowing that you have survived 100% of the situations that you have been through, no matter how terrible they were, I mean, you're still here. And then taking that mindset to then push through the thing that you're going through now. Very important. I think it's also very important that we recognize that this too shall pass. Nothing in life is forever. Every stage and phase has something that it brings to us. We can extract lessons from it, but they're never going to be these things that we're stuck in unless we choose to be stuck. And recognize that being stuck is a choice. And even if you're moving incrementally, like baby step by baby step, so long as you are creating some degree of momentum, then you're taking responsibility for your role in that situation. And that's all we can do. Sometimes circumstance is something that is beyond us, and no one is here blaming anyone for the circumstances that they find themselves in. With all that said, circumstance does not negate us from trying everything within our power to make an influence on those circumstances, to make a change in that situation. And I find that circumstance is one of those things that really show you who's really aligned to you for you and who isn't. And that used to be very debilitating. It used to be that if I felt like my circumstances were changing, that would change my social environment, it would change my social community. That used to be very disappointing, because I would think that I had fostered such deep friendships that regardless of the circumstance, like, these people would still be here. And that's not the case, and it's not the case for anyone. It's a really hard lesson to learn if you haven't learned it already, but it's an important lesson to learn, because you don't want being in hard circumstances being the time that you realize that there are certain people who are circumstantial people. They're not going to be in your life forever. They don't have that intention whatsoever. So if you are finding yourself going through difficulty and then finding yourself isolated in your difficulty, recognize that it's not adding insult to injury, it's the clarity that comes with changes in circumstances. And that's what I like to tell myself, because I think that life really does really well, is it shows you, even if you have like the snapshot period of time where things are really hard, how people respond, how people react tells you who you are to them, and therefore what they should be to you. And sometimes if you don't have that information, you find yourself pouring into people who never had the intention to pour back into you, or who are doing things sort of superficially. And if you are constantly in a situation where your circumstance is stable, then you're not going to give yourself the opportunity to have clarity to know who is there actually for you, who is there for you, and who is the kind of person that you want to invest in. So I think that circumstance is important. I think changes in circumstance, if you're focused on growth, if you're focused on pushing the needle, and you're not playing safe, then you're going to have changes in your circumstance, right? And sometimes changes in circumstance have nothing to do with your choices. Sometimes these are things that there's still life puts in front of you, and you just have to deal with it. But a lot of the times, circumstance can be something that we can drive. And I find that it is just more information, more insight for me if my circumstances dictate the kinds of people who show up and the people who disappear. And if in my changes of circumstance, the people who disappeared want to show up again, I know better at this stage, because circumstance gave me the clarity that I needed. So I think that recognizing that every experience that the circumstance brings to us is always clarity. Even if it's a painful experience, if it's a hard experience, if it's an experience we didn't ask for and not an experience that we want, it is an opportunity of clarity. And I think that hardship, if nothing else, is clarity, right? And if we can push through the suffering, the pain, and all the things that we're going through, what is it that we see out of that hardship? What is it that we recognize? And then how can we anchor in that truth to help us be better, to be stronger, to show up braver the next time around? And this is regardless of what you're going through. You can always show up better, stronger, braver with the truth that those situations are bringing to you. And I think that life is always navigating us around situations, people, and circumstances that highlight flaws in our belief system, flaws in our value system, flaws in our convictions, so that we can refine them. Because you don't want to go through life believing the same things you believed when you were young, right? As you get older, you want to shift and align those beliefs and adapt those beliefs to the reality around you. And I find that it's easier to do that when you're going through a situation that forces you to really see things differently. And I think that that's always going to be a gift. And last but not least, I think that one of the key elements that really enable you to push through hardship is respecting and honoring and holding space for your emotions. And I think that this isn't something that people highlight enough, but when you honor and you hold space for your emotions rather than criticize yourself or be angry with yourself for having emotions, you give yourself an opportunity to calibrate and to align and to reset as well. And I think that what's really, really important to me is my emotions show me who I am and how my becoming is aligned to or further away from who I've been in the past. And so when I have a specific emotional reaction to something, it is always because a value, a belief, a conviction has been triggered. And when I think about the consistency of my emotions around specific events that triggered those specific values, beliefs, and convictions, then it gives me a mirror by way of who I am. Because I don't think we are emotions. I think our emotions are signals about who we are in relation to the thing in front of us. And if we start to respect and hold space for our emotions, we give ourselves an opportunity to get to know ourselves better. Because your emotions are not something that you can control. Your emotional footprint, how you show up on a day-to-day basis, how you show up normally, that's your emotional footprint. There's not a lot that you can do to control that. You can control how it manifests for sure, but you can't control the fact that you're experiencing those emotions. You can hide the fact that you're experiencing those emotions. You can feel angry that you feel those emotions, but I think it might be the better choice to accept that this is how you respond, how you react in specific situations. And if it's not how you want to respond and how you want to react, then you want to change your situation. And I think that's all what our emotions are trying to do, is signal to us what isn't or isn't working about the people, places, and situations in our lives. And I think that rather than criticize ourselves and our emotions, because these are within us to help us create the lives that we want, then we need to be a little bit more critical, a little bit more evaluative of the environment around us that are triggering these emotions in us. And if we're looking for alignment, if we're looking for peace, then we have to listen to those emotional signals. If those emotional signals are giving you a sense to move away from something, move away from them and see how your emotional landscape changes, right? And I think a lot of us think that we are this kind of person because we have rooted ourselves in situations and circumstances that bring up specific emotions. But you would be surprised, all of you would be surprised, if you change your situation, if you change the environment you're in, change the people, places, and situations that you navigate, you're going to feel a shift and change in how your emotions are responding to this new normal. And I think that tells you a lot about your growth. It tells you a lot about your becoming. It tells you a lot about your beliefs, your convictions, and your values, and to what extent those are shifting and in what direction. And if you don't like the direction that they're shifting in, then it gives you an opportunity to level set with yourself yourself and to calibrate and to introspect and to think about, well, what kind of human do I want to be? Like, what values, convictions, and beliefs do I want to carry? And you'll find that your emotional and mental life aligns to that when you make those active, intentional, and very mindful choices. And so I wanted to come on here because I think resilience is super important, and not a lot of people have resilience. Not a lot of people recognize their strength and their ability to push through hard things. And if you're watching this, maybe you're questioning your strength and your ability to push through hard things. But all of us have this resource. All of us have it within us. That's why we made it, and certain people did not, just because, we have the specific genes that enable our survival. But now, if we are not responding to the pressure, to the resistance that our environment is putting on us, if we're just caving and not meeting that pressure with equal pressure, then we're never going to see our potential. We're never going to see ourselves grow. So that's why I wanted to come on here, because I want to trigger that thinking. I want you to think about, well, what mindset do you carry? Are you in a survivor mindset or in a victim mindset? And if you recognize that being a victim in your own mind, believing yourself to be a victim, holding the value around how victims behave and how they respond and don't respond, and how that's helping you or hurting you, then I think that introspection will help you figure out like what is a better mindset, which is a survivor. And remember, you've always survived 100% of the things you're going through. Next is circumstance. We want those changes in circumstance because change in circumstance brings clarity. And even if that clarity can be painful, clarity is always an opportunity to find inner alignment and to give yourself the space, the room you need to grow and to do better and to find better sometimes even as well. Last but not least, honor and respect your emotions. Your emotions are part of who you are. They are not who you are, but they are energy emotion. They tell you how you feel about the people, places, and situations around you over and above like how you want to feel. And I think that it's really important that we hold space, we respect how we feel about a specific situation, and then we use how we feel about a situation to gauge our next steps forward. Now, if you have specific skills, tools, or resources that you use to help you push through those hard, difficult challenges, I want to hear what they are. I think these are 3 for me that are key, but this is an opportunity for us to discuss, to share, because again, like none of us are exempt from having the school of the hard knocks, so they say. And though it translates differently for each of us, we can still build community and find solidarity in the fact that we've been through something that has made us who we are. And we have made the choice to be better as a result of it. And so that was it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now, if you're curious to discuss more, we do host live events at least twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future on our website. So definitely be sure to check that out. Now, these events are paid events. So if you do see yourself participating in our community on an ongoing basis, then I do suggest that you take a look at one of our package plans. Yes, we do offer package plans over and above our live events, as well as access to webinars and workshops largely focused on self-mastery over and above those events. So check it out, be part of our game changer community, being part of the change that you want to see, allowing us a small role to play in your journey. We also do host parent-child workshops. These are digital continuous learning sessions, one of the first of their kind, enabling parents and children alike to focus on cultivating their children's leadership quotient. And so with that, we have 4 key pillars that we feel really do foster leadership development, sort of leadership qualities and leadership abilities, and that's focalizing on cultivating a strong sense of self-concept, of autonomy, self-efficacy, and compassion. So if I piqued your interest, definitely check out the website, see what we have to offer, and I look forward to chatting with all of you very soon. We'll talk to you later.